You know, there are nights you never forget. Some for the joy, some for the fear. And then there are nights that split your life in half. The ones where everything before feels like a dream, and everything after feels like a different world. That's the night I'm going to tell you about. The night my son became something else. It didn't start with thunder. No ominous signs in the sky, just an ordinary evening. I was sitting on the porch, sipping my coffee, watching the last of the sunlight slip behind the trees. My wife was inside, humming while cleaning up after dinner. And my son, my boy, he was out in the garage working on that old dirt bike he'd rescued from the neighbor's junk pile. He'd always loved machines, said they made more sense than people. He was 17, that strange age when they're not quite kids anymore, but they're not grown yet either. A mix of arrogance and confusion. He had a good heart, but he was wrestling with something I didn't fully understand. He didn't talk much those days, just nods and shrugs. But I watched him closely. The silence between us was getting louder. That night, something shifted. I remember it because of the way the wind picked up all of a sudden. Not a storm kind of wind, just wrong. Unnatural. It pushed against the house like it was testing something. And I could hear a sound in the distance. Metal against metal, fast and rhythmic. I figured it was the dirt bike, but then it stopped abruptly. I waited a moment, then another. And something in me, some old fatherly instinct, made me get up and walk toward the garage. I didn't call out, didn't want to startle him if he was deep in thought. But as I got closer, I noticed the light inside flickering like a dying candle. The door was cracked open. I pushed it gently, and there he was. But it wasn't just him. He stood in the center of the garage, frozen, like a statue. His eyes were open but blank, so wide it didn't seem real. His hands were out in front of him, trembling, and there was this faint blue glow coming from them. Almost like sparks, but slow, like liquid light. I stared, heart pounding. My brain couldn't make sense of it. "Son?" I said, my voice quieter than I meant. He turned to me, slow, like he was underwater, and then he spoke. "I didn't mean to." That's all he said. I didn't mean to. And before I could ask anything, the glow vanished, and he collapsed. Just crumpled to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. I rushed to him, lifted his head. He was burning hot, sweat pouring off his forehead, but shivering. I thought he was having a seizure. We called the ambulance, of course. They came fast. But by the time we got to the hospital, he was different. Not just physically, emotionally. Something inside him had changed. Over the next few days, the doctors ran every test imaginable. Brain scans, blood work, sleep studies. They all said the same thing. He's fine. But he wasn't. He stopped speaking for 3 days. Wouldn't eat. Just stared out the window like he was listening to something no one else could hear. I asked him, again and again, what happened that night? And finally, on the 4th day, he answered. I felt it inside me, like something was waking up, like something I didn't know was mine. That's not something a 17-year-old says. That's something you hear in old legends or books, not from a kid who liked motor oil and late-night video games. I didn't know what to do. We tried therapy. We tried prayer. We tried pretending it was all a dream. But every so often, late at night, I'd see it again. That faint blue glow. Just for a moment. Faint enough to doubt myself. Strong enough to know I wasn't wrong. Then came the changes. The small ones at first. He stopped needing sleep. Said he'd rest for an hour or 2 and feel completely awake. He started solving. Math problems in seconds. Things he'd never cared about before. Once, when my car wouldn't start, he touched the hood and it turned over like new. No tools, no jumper cables, just his hand. I tried to keep it quiet. People asked questions, and I was terrified the wrong person would see him and try to take him away. I I started homeschooling him again, took time off work. He didn't argue. He seemed to know. He was trying to control it, but I could see it taking a toll. The more he used whatever was inside him, the more distant he became. He wasn't becoming evil. That's not the story. He wasn't some monster. But he wasn't my boy either. Not exactly. He was something else. One night, I finally sat him down on that same porch where it all started. The moon was high, quiet breeze, and I asked him directly, "Do you know what you are?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at the stars like they were whispering secrets to him. Then he said, "I think I'm what happens when something old remembers something new." I didn't know what that meant. Still don't. But I saw peace in his face when he said it, and fear too. "I'm scared I'll hurt someone," he said softly. "You haven't," I replied. "Yet," he said. And that broke me. It didn't stay hidden forever. Neighbors started to talk. A woman down the street said her baby stopped breathing, and then started again after my son walked by. A man at the gas station saw him mend a shattered phone with just a touch. They started calling him names: angel, demon, healer, freak. Some said it was a miracle. Others said it was a curse. We didn't ask for this. We didn't want attention. But attention came. And with it, people. Strangers started showing up at our door. A woman drove all the way from New Mexico with her sick daughter. A man said he dreamed of my son's face and followed it across 3 states. Some came with hope in their eyes, others with fear. My son met them all with kindness. But I could see it draining him. He was carrying something enormous, something too big for a 17-year-old heart. I started researching old texts, mythologies, scientific papers on bioelectric fields and quantum resonance, everything, and nothing made sense. The one thread I kept finding was this idea of awakening. Some called it evolution. Some called it divine intervention. Some believed the earth itself chooses messengers. But they all said the same thing. Once you become something else, you can never go back. It's been over a year since that night. My son still lives with us, but he isn't a boy anymore. He walks like someone who's seen other lifetimes, talks like someone who understands silence better than sound, and yet, he laughs sometimes. That same goofy laugh I remember from when he was 5. He helps around the house, mows the lawn. But sometimes I'll catch him staring at the sky again, hands glowing faintly, quiet, listening. We don't know how long we have with him. Maybe forever, maybe not. But I learned something as a father. You don't always get to understand your child. You just have to love them, even when they become something else. So if you're a parent, or just someone trying to make sense of the strange in your life, remember this. Sometimes what looks like breaking is actually becoming. And sometimes, when the world feels too big, it's because something inside you is finally waking up. Thanks for listening. This was the story of the night my son became something else, and I'll never forget it. The hard part wasn't the changes. It wasn't the glowing hands or the whispers that seemed to follow him through the wind. It was the waiting for something bigger to happen. Like we were sitting in the calm before the next storm, and we didn't know how big it was going to be. And we tried to live normally, we really did. We went back to family dinners. He and I would work on the old truck out back. My wife would pretend not to notice the strange signals he sometimes gave off, like the time every light bulb in the kitchen exploded when he sneezed. We laughed about it, but behind every laugh was that look, that worry. I found myself watching him when he wasn't looking, studying him, wondering how much of him was still mine, and how much belonged to something else now. He still called. Me, Dad. Still left his socks everywhere. Still forgot to put the milk away. But then, at night, he'd sit outside in the grass, barefoot, cross-legged, silent for hours. The dog wouldn't go near him when he did that. Birds would sit in the trees and just stay, not moving, as if they were waiting for something too. And sometimes when I walked past his room, I'd hear voices. Not loud, not scary, just a quiet, layered hum, like more than one voice speaking at once. Calm, rhythmic, almost musical. I asked him once who he was talking to. He looked up from his sketchbook, smiled a little, and said, "Not talking, listening." Then came the knock at the door. Not the neighbors, not strangers from far away. These men were dressed like they didn't belong. Clean-cut, unblinking, the kind of people who don't say hello, just let's talk. They said they were from a research institute, showed me some badge I didn't recognize, and asked about the night in the garage. They knew too much. Dates, locations, surveillance footage of the hospital parking lot from weeks before. They asked calm questions, but every word was cold. They didn't ask to take him. They expected to. But when they saw him, when he stepped into the living room and stood silently before them, something changed. The taller man, the one with the wire in his ear, he shifted his weight, almost stepped back. My son didn't say a word, just looked at them, and that blue glow started to rise faintly from his palms. They left without saying goodbye, just nodded once and walked away. We never saw them again. But after that night, we started noticing vans parked across the street, phones acting funny, our internet cutting out every time he got emotional. He knew they were watching, but he didn't seem scared. He said, "They're trying to figure out if I'm a threat." I asked, "Are you?" He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Only if they try to take me." Then came the night I'll never forget, more than the garage, more than the hospital. It was raining, heavy. The power had gone out across town. He was in the backyard, arms raised toward the sky. Lightning lit him up like a silhouette, his hair plastered to his face, his chest rising and falling like he was in pain. I ran out there, soaking wet, yelling over the storm. "Come inside! What are you doing?" He didn't move, just whispered something I couldn't hear. And then the wind stopped. Just nothing, no air, no sound. Everything was still. And I watched, helpless, as my son rose, lifted inches off the ground. The rain didn't touch him. The water beaded around him like he had a shield of light. And then he screamed, not in pain, not in fear, but in release. In becoming. It was like every part of him that had been trying to stay small finally cracked open. And the sky, it responded. One flash of light, like the whole atmosphere was breathing with him. And then it was over, just like that. He fell, back to the ground, slowly, quietly. And I caught him in my arms. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I think I know what I'm here for." He started writing after that. Journals, pages of symbols and language I'd never seen before, drawings of constellations, diagrams of human energy centers. He told me, "I'm not the only one. There are more like me, waking up." I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't want to break the flow, but I knew in my bones that it was real. He said, "We're not here to fix the world, just to remind it of what it forgot." What did it forget? I asked. That everything's connected. That love is a frequency, that fear is a program, that time isn't as linear as it feels. My son was 17, and he was saying things philosophers spend lifetimes trying to understand. I stopped trying to explain him to people after that. My wife, bless her, tried her best. She'd pray at night. She believed it was a gift, a blessing. But I could see the worry on her face too. The fear that one day we'd wake up and he'd be gone. Not taken, not missing, but just gone. Like he'd transcended or evaporated or turned into light. He reassured her in ways only he could. Left notes in the morning, cooked her breakfast, without asking. Sat next to her in church and held her hand during every hymn. He hadn't lost his humanity. If anything, it was sharper now, more sensitive. And for me, I stopped seeing him as my little boy. Not because I didn't love him, but because I had to accept that he wasn't just mine anymore. He belonged to something bigger, maybe to everyone. And that realization, it broke my heart. But it also made me proud in a way I can't explain. About a month ago, he told us something that shook us to the core. I have to leave soon. Where? I asked. He didn't answer, just looked up at the sky again. He said, somewhere people are waking up. They need someone to guide them, to remind them they're not broken. I tried to argue, tried to say he was too young, that we needed him. But he hugged me, tighter than he ever had before, and whispered, I'll always be with you. And when he said that, I believed him. He's still here, for now. I don't know when he'll leave. Maybe he'll just walk down the road one day and never look back. Maybe he'll vanish into a dream. Maybe he'll become part of the wind, or the stars, or the space between seconds. But I'll be here, on this porch, coffee in hand, waiting. Remembering, he's still my son, but he's also something else. And I thank God every day that I got to witness it. Because when you see someone become what they were always meant to be, it changes you too. So if you're listening to this, and your child is different, or you feel different, don't rush to fix it. Don't try to explain it away. Sometimes we're not meant to understand everything. Sometimes we're just meant to witness it. That was the night my son became something else. And this was the story of what happened after. Thank you for listening.